Friday. To all of my fucking friends and foes. This is Freeology Friday, and I'm Derrick Day, and I'm joined by
Daryl, Carlson.
Yeah, Daryl and
this is Asa.
That's Asa, but who are you?
Ben Urban.
I thought so. How are y'all doing this evening?
Oh, I was doing okay this morning before a little bit in the afternoon. When I woke up, I was doing okay.
Yeah, I can dig it, man. It's like I was, my morning started off good. I was in a good space, and then I get this news. And but before that, there's I have in my glass a big ass serving of old fashioned. And I got a big ass serving because this has been a tough day. It's been a tough day professionally. It's been a tough day politically, and then on top of that, I'm dealing with my first world problems. There's a pump that runs my hot tub that seized up, and so the pool guy took it off to try to replace it or try to repair it. And meanwhile, it caused water to leach out of the pool. So I had to put water in it. But then my wife went and messed with the hose, and it's one of those shrinky-dink hoses. So it just started shooting all over the place. And she said, you need to come out and get your demon hose. So that's why I'm late, guys. So that's what's in my glass. So you guys have anything in your glasses, or are you stone cold sober tonight?
No. It's Friday, which means it's time for my adult beverages. Tonight, I'm having a Nugs and Kisses double IPA by Sycamore Brewing Company.
Okay.
And so I have to drive after this is over. So I've got Culver's. I got green screen. I got Culver's old-fashioned root beer. If I was home, it'd be traced with a little rum, most likely.
Right on. So let me do something real quick before we jump into the subject, because like I said, I'm not in Facebook jail per se. I'm in Facebook timeout. But hey, look, it showed up. It shows that I'm live. How about that? So
all right.
So I mean, but still, you guys can share it. If you're so inclined. But we're two things that we wanted to talk about. We talked internally about what the topic was going to be, and up until this morning, it was going to be on conflict and collaboration, which I think is a really fantastic subject because honestly, I think that most people really suck at conflict resolution, and I also think that most people wouldn't really know how to collaborate if it bit them in the ass. Okay, so that's the two things that I wanted to throw out about that. But then the Supreme Court this morning overturned Roe versus Wade, a statute that had been the law of the land for over 50 years, and now conservative Christian Republicans, this is their wet dream. And I'm just going to say this before I turn it over to you guys to chime in, because I'm going to keep my little monologue short. And it's this: if you, where's Asa? Because I'm about to say
he's over there, but he's fine. Now he's back.
Put some headphones on.
I'm about to say some really salty things. All right, and I don't want to tenderize his already tender ears.
That's okay. He knows all the major words. Not a proud thing for me or anything. It's just the way it is.
I can dig it. But it's this. There is nothing that should determine what a woman does with her own body. That's the bottom line. And I'm saying this as someone that used to be a conservative Christian, Republican, pro-lifer, all of that. I used to be that guy. I used to be the guy that banged that drum. I used to, man, even I was one of the people that prayed for the overturn of Roe versus Wade. And here we are. So I'm I'm angry for a number of reasons. Number one, that this is the law of the land, and now millions of women's lives are going to be impacted by this. Number two, that it's the imposition of theocracy, or the beginning of theocracy in this country, and number three, I'm just really tired. Y'all, I'm tired of Christians. I'm tired of Christianity.
Yep.
And so that's where I'll stop. So either one of you guys want to jump in and take it from there, let's go at it.
Well, I'll just put
man.
it. Okay. I'll just put this statement out there, and it might become a rabbit trail statement, but I feel like this whole situation is misogyny trying to mask itself as morality.
Damn, that's good. That's memeable.
I mean, that's really the long and the short of it. Just like you were saying, Derrick, no woman, I mean, no man or anybody in general can tell another woman, or tell a woman in general, what she can do with her body. Now, like you, I used to be a completely pro-life, evangelical. I was in that camp too. I believe that too. I didn't hear anybody else's view on it. I just assumed, oh, that's murder. You're murdering babies, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then when you really look at it and you understand the bigger picture of it, you're not really murdering babies. You're either shortening a life once it's already here because the parents can't take care of the child. They're not in that situation where they can take care of the child, or you're putting the woman's life in jeopardy.
Let me just stop.
A whole other side to it.
Let me stop and interject something real quick. Emmanuel Jones, fuck you. Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. If that wasn't sarcastic.
That's not me being sarcastic. That's me saying that I would say the same shit to your face.
Yeah, I'm just saying if Emmanuel means that realistically and not sarcastically.
No, he means it realistically.
Oh, okay. Well, then we go. Yeah. I understand how that goes.
Yeah. Keep going, Ben. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I basically said what I was going to say there, but
and yeah, I'm in the same camp, evangelical all the way, and so I understand how when you sort of do this and just listen to if you're in your bubble and you don't listen to each other, and if this is about conflict and collaboration, like this is sort of the end of what it looks like when we don't do conflict well. Conflict is a vital part of being human. You can't get around it. When you avoid it, you end up in crazy ass shit like this.
Yep.
And so now before we when we can get into that, but I had an epiphany. I thought it was an epiphany this morning. And I wanted to run it by you guys. And then, Ben with Beth, I think she might have a lot in on this, and let all the ladies listening hear what they have to say. So coming out of a lot of the indoctrination I've been in, and looking at all the other different religions, different traditions, different ways of seeing the world, there's a lot of other religions and traditions that really see womanhood in a very more elevated way, very more like even divine way. And the notion that a woman can give birth and all that she's capable of doing with her body was like held sacred in the best sense of that word.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me that a lot of what the misfiring of communication is, it's a woman's body. No, it's not her body. There's another life inside her body. And now we're not talking. What if, and I'm not going to say this right, but what if the woman is the gatekeeper of life? So it still is her decision. Now, us men, so that's misogyny. We want to control women. We don't like the fact that they actually have profound power. And I'll say it, women are profoundly powerful. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid of that because we each are powerful. So even they're the gatekeepers of life. And we don't know when life begins, and the Christians want to talk about, when the soul enters the body. Nobody knows that. And you can't use the Bible for that. In fact, the Bible just works against you if you're going to take it literally, like they say they do, except when they come against the parts they don't like and they say, oh, that's figurative. Give me a break. But even if you want to look at it, it's a separate life. It's a life that she is charged with ushering in or not, because hot damn, you know, I remember I was in the religious trauma group. Somebody made a really quick post that they were adopted and it fucked their life up.
Yeah.
So now hold on a second. Isn't it just an automatic default? You come into the world and that's the best thing in the world for you? So what if women had the best intuition and they know what's the best thing to do, even for this life, and they have this powerfully important charge? Let them make the goddamn fucking decision.
Right. I love what you said there, Daryl, about intuition. Like, there's just this innate sense about, like, motherhood. They just know what's perfect, what's right for their children, what's right for them, and the collaboration. And in some cases, it might be that they have to let go of that child or that potential child in time, you know, because they know if they're bringing that baby into a better situation or a worse situation by going through with the pregnancy or going through with the abortion, they just have that sense about it. But it also goes back to the fact that, and this goes back to, nobody has any right to say what somebody does with their own body.
Yep.
Nobody else is living that person's exact circumstances. Not even the guy that impregnated the girl.
You know, and this is funny, right? Because I like to turn the whole Bible thing back on the Christians, because according to their book, according to their Bible, life begins when the body takes breath, and life ends when the breath leaves the body. You know, they gave up the ghost, right? It says in the beginning that God breathed into the nostrils of Adam and he became a living soul. In other words, until you draw that first breath outside of the womb, you are not a living being. And this is according to your book, right? And I also like to point out that there is absolutely nothing that is said prohibiting abortion in the scripture. Nothing. But there are at least 8 known passages of scripture where God himself prescribes abortions.
I didn't even know there was that many, Derrick.
Yeah,
I just know the numbers, whatever one.
No, I mean, this is something
11.
that, if it's anything more than one, this is God saying this is how you kill babies, right? So
aside from dashing their heads on the stones, sorry to cut you.
Or ripping the women open, ripping the pregnant women open. That's an abortion, guys. I don't care how you slice it or dice it. And God himself told someone to do these things. Now, here's the thing. To go back to I want to stick with Daryl's premise in conflict and collaboration, because here's the thing, that if society agrees that we all have unique or maybe corporate beliefs, but these beliefs are not universally upheld by everyone. Therefore, those beliefs cannot be used to govern the land. Not if we say that ostensibly we are the land of liberty. And if we are going to be a free people, that means that not only should we be free to worship if we choose, but to be free from worship if we choose. And that means that the consent of the governed should never acquiesce to a religious idiom. And that's the problem now, is that, and here's the thing. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Justice Clarence Thomas, and I say that tongue in cheek, he said, now that we have overturned Roe, it's time to take a look at some other case precedents that involve contraception, transgender rights protection, and gay marriage. So my thing is this just the beginning? Are we going back to Plessy versus Ferguson? Are we going back to Brown versus Board of Education? Are we going back to the antebellum South? Is this the ultimate goal? I mean, are we going to try to strip all the rights away from anyone that is a non-white or non-male? Is this the ultimate? Is this the end game? Because that's what it appears to be. And it's so funny that people like Clarence Thomas would say something like this when number one, he's a black man, and number two, that he's a black man married to a white woman, which was not the law of the land until 1967 with Loving versus the state of Virginia. So okay, Clarence, are we going to go back to where you and your wife can't be married anymore? Now y'all got a shack in secret? Is that what you're looking for? I mean, and I'm really angry at all these quote unquote Christians that are celebrating this. Oh, God has answered our prayers. Oh, look at God. Oh, God is awesome. He's finally turning. Listen, y'all, this is, first of all, I'm just going to say this just to get it off my chest. There is no fucking God. It just isn't. And this legislation or this precedent overturning is just another example of that. Because what you're saying is that now you're developing another lever by which you're able to extract or exert some force over someone. And if there is a God, this God certainly would not be about that. I mean, come on. And so this whole thing about conflict, if we were to say, how can we don't agree, but how can we get along in spite of our disagreement? How can we resolve our conflicts in a peaceful manner in such a way that I am able to exercise my franchise of belief without inflicting it on someone else? And then when it comes to collaboration, that, you know, the preamble to the Constitution says to provide for the common defense and to promote the general welfare. And this general welfare is saying that, hey, you know, the rights, the benefits of this freedom being bestowed upon all people, that we're not, this collaboration should say, okay, how can we do certain things in a collaborative way that we don't infringe upon the rights of others? And that's where we are right now. And anyway, I'll shut up.
No, it's absolutely, it's mind numbing. It's all of those things. You don't even know how to put words to it, but it's, if you're going to have good conflict, it means, you know, I was listening to a Brene Brown podcast, and I can't remember the name of the gentleman who she had on, but talking about COVID and coming back to the workplace, and they talked about conflict. You have conflict that's around a task. We want to accomplish something. There's a mutual goal we want to achieve, and we see different ways to go about getting that. And then you're going to have conflict, and you want to have good conflict. But when conflict gets personal, that's when it can go off the rails. Exactly. And so if you just quoted the founding father documents and what this country is supposed to be about, and right in what you're saying, all I'm hearing is it's about all of us together and working for mutual freedom. And
yes.
And so if that is going to be the goal, then maybe you have to have a common ground. You have to have some kind of common sense, common beliefs, common agreements that you can stand on together, say, now we're going to move forward and try to come at this. But it just bothers me because if you are, and so much of this is religious driven, and the problem with religion and what it does is it enshrines me as God. And I'm sorry, we get all fancy with it, and it's like, oh no, God is, no, it's God agrees with you always, and God sees it my way. And
God is your projections.
No, it is. And if it's not you, you think it's God, but read your own church history, read your own history of the development of doctrines, and you'll see every doctrine you hold dear, which you think God totally, completely 100% said, you can see where the first human being is the one that said it first, and no one believed it before that. And so you have to yeah, I don't know. I'm really befuddled.
Well, I'm gonna throw out another one of my pithy slogans. In our attempt to get unity to happen, we have discarded diversity. We have shied away from it and been in fear of it. And that's why we're in this conflict. Indoctrination is at the heart of all of this, at the heart of the problem. Indoctrination, because it goes back to the idea of, the fear of theocracy for us, because, we're seeing indoctrination rising up again and again. Just when we think we're starting to edge it out and we're finding greener pastures, it keeps raising its ugly head and it keeps coming back, and it just keeps. And now with this situation, like, oh, well, yeah, the Supreme Court is going to look at other former ideas, that they may have, let slide in their opinion. And this is something that just really bothers me, like, to the point of something I've observed about the dangers of indoctrination. I mean, above so many other reasons why it's so bad, but it even turns you against yourself. Like I've seen, like in this case, like you were talking about, Derrick, you're talking about Clarence Thomas. He is looking to reverse something that helped him as a black man and turn it back to wage war against him again.
Yeah.
I've seen women who will just steadfastly stick to the hardcore, hardline evangelical way, even though it's blatantly misogynistic. But they will throw their sisters under the bus because apparently this book is all powerful and says what is right.
Right.
That they're ready to throw themselves under the bus.
Right.
And so, it's even gotten to the point where I've seen gay people, I'm not sure, I don't want to say the wrong term, but like homosexuals who have even gone against their own way of being, their natural way of what they feel because of that book, because of that indoctrination. They have turned on themselves and decided, I'd rather just live a life that is half a life because I can't express myself who I am. I can't love who I want. I can't be who I want to be. I mean, that kind of hits me personally because my grandfather was gay. And he had to basically hide himself. Of course, he lived in a time where it was like he could have gotten in some major, trouble for that. And now it's looking like that could happen again because we are turning on ourselves. If we find that a concept takes over what our head and our heart tell us is true, then we're imprisoning ourselves, and that's what's happening with all this. This is just like one of the early signs of human de-evolution again. I mean, just when we thought we were evolving, it's starting to go back the other way.
See, but
we are backsliding.
Nailed it, Ben. You just said it. Going against what you know in your head and your heart is true. And that is explicitly, like, vehemently nauseous. Evangelical Christians can't stand that. That's a doctrinal thing. To say that you need to care for yourself, love yourself, accept other people is just repulsive. They think they are completely turned against themselves. I am evil, I am sinful, and all the whole 9 yards. And it is so profoundly self-destructive. And it's such an entrapment and such an indoctrination that and so of course they're going to. Of course they think going back to the old way is better because they are worshiping an idol. The Bible is an idol for most Christians that I know. Not all of them, but it is just a flat out idol. And so they're just going to worship whatever the priest who interprets their idol tells them their idol is saying.
Let me ask you guys a question, because you brought up a really good point about being conflicted in yourself and acting against your own self-interest, right? So can you effectively collaborate with anyone when you are conflicted within yourself? That's the question I want to.
I really think you can't. I think a big part of being able to handle conflict well, where no one's perfect, and I think everyone can do it to a better degree. You don't have to perfectly be congruent, but if you're going to have conflict, that's vulnerable. I have to be willing to be vulnerable with you and say what I actually think, because like right now, honestly, and this long before this happened, this culture does not know how to do conflict well. And every time someone stands up and shares what they truly believe on either side, the other side attacks with absolute hatred and venom and wants to destroy the person for dare saying something that they don't agree with. And that's a problem. So it's that ability to be able to it's really being able to regulate your own emotions, to be able to hear somebody out and try to understand where they're coming from. And that's on both sides. No one's exempt from really fucking that one up. And I told you before we started, I'm dropping more bombs because I
hear you, man. I hear you. I'm feeling you. I'm right there with you.
Right. And I think that's where holy rolling comes from. The saying holy rolling, if you can, I guess it's an adjective, but it makes sense because it's almost like you're on a drug. You're holy rolling. You're just so caught up in this idea that you can't see past it because you're being altered by it. Your mind, your body, and your spirit is all being altered by this idea, this concept, and you're afraid of this God that you will question what is truly moral, but just accept what is said is moral in the eyes of this God, apparently. But this God, if we're all being really honest, has never really shown up. At least not for any of us. We've never actually seen this God or heard this God or touched this God or tasted this God or smelled this God. But apparently this God has enough power to do this much damage to our psyche and to scare the hell out of us into the point where we turn on each other and we turn on our own sense of virtue. And I think part of waking up and realizing the only way to collaborate is to get over the conflict within ourselves, to be able to find that sense that tells us, you know what, we are more than that story we've been told for all these years, that we're rotten, we are dirty, we are good for nothing, sinners. Sin has tore us up. Sin, that silly, ignorant narrative, that sadistic and human narrative, has just fucked us up.
What Christianity hinges its whole existence on a book that specializes in not conflict resolution. It's either my way or the highway. It's either do or die. Right. There is no alternative. There is no, how can I look at someone else who doesn't believe like me, look like me, talk like me? How can I work with them? In other words, the whole premise is built upon proselytizing and converting the entire world and getting everyone into the worst form of groupthink. And if anybody wants to know about groupthink, Aaron and I did a really good talk on that. I encourage you to go back and look at it. But the thing is that what happens is, and I'm really big on this thing. Like, I talk about this all the time. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. And I believe that this is like one of the most important books that any human being can read, because once you understand your why, you begin to build the concentric circles of your life outward from that, and you understand, basically how to execute from a point of what is it that impassions me, what is it that drives me, what is it that fuels me, and so the other thing is that you cannot effectively resolve conflict when you ascribe or when you subscribe to a notion that doesn't allow conflict, right? I mean, because the Bible is not a conflict resolution document. It's not, hey, how do we, it doesn't talk about how to get along with the Hittites.
It doesn't do well with others, basically.
Right. It doesn't talk about how to get along with Rome or how to get along with the Pharisees. It doesn't talk about any of that. It talks about how to basically rumroll any opposition. And that's the big problem. So when we get to this whole situation with Roe v. Wade and all of the other downrange legislation that we're looking at through this lens, now it's like, okay, we've scored this victory. Now, how do we subdue the next one, and the next one, and the next one? And what it comes down to is absolute theocracy, which I promise you that when you have absolute theocracy, let me explain something, right? That the reason why Iran doesn't succeed beyond its own borders, and let me tell you something, Iran is a country that is full of smart people. Basically the Persian culture is, it's like the Persians in the Middle East and some of the African societies are the group that brought civilization, that brought language, that brought mathematics and calculation to the world. So these are people that are really, really smart, but they are so overrun by their theocracy and how they believe that Islam has to run everything. And so as a result, there are multitudes of discoveries, multitudes of inventions, multitudes of literature, multitudes of music that come out of Iran that will never see the light of day because of the theocracy. So here, what happens is that countries that are mired in theocracy, and I don't care, you can look at any one of them. You can look at any country that's mired in theocracy, and it is either failing or it's doomed to fail. One of my favorite case studies right now is Saudi Arabia. And I tell people all the time that the House of Saud is a house of cards. This is a fucker that's ready to blow down at any given moment, because the theocracy that created the kingdom, the House of Saud, is now imploding upon itself. And so we as Americans, we should be able to look at this and say, okay, in what historical context has theocracy ever succeeded? And before somebody opens their mouth to say Israel, I'm going to say I've been to Israel. I've been to Israel exactly 8 times. And I can tell you that Israel is not a theocracy. Israel is a secular parliamentarian country. Now, it claims to have some racial homogeny and some religious basis, but most of the people in Israel don't go to synagogue. Most of the people in Israel don't practice Judaism. They don't. And so to try to call out Israel is a straw man. That doesn't work. But every country that has tried theocracy has abjectively failed. And now you want to try to impose that same thing. In other words, all of the light of innovation, of invention, of creativity that comes forth from this country, you people that are bent on that think that this decision by the Supreme Court is a good thing, but it's the beginning of theocracy. You are saying that you are prepared to shut down the very best of America and sacrifice it at the altar of your religious beliefs.
I like that you mentioned about ancient civilizations too, because something I've noticed a lot this month, especially this month, has a lot of memes I've seen. One that comes up so too often is this one that my Christian friends think is real clever. They put it out there. The rainbow isn't about pride. It's about God giving us a sense of hope that he will never flood the earth or, whatever,
Right.
All that story. And it just makes me think like, okay, how many civilizations were thriving at the time that this supposed flood happened? We've all heard the Epic of Gilgamesh too, which was actually before the Noah flood.
Right.
So
which is where the flood story comes from.
Explain how all these different civilizations were thriving. And this is historical evidence. You can look it up. These places existed. Archaeological evidence shows us that these places existed and were thriving when apparently the earth was being completely washed out.
Right.
So how do you explain that? One book tells us that it does, but there's so much more evidence in the information age to reveal to us that that's not the story at all.
You know what China says? China says what flood? Right. The record of the Mayans says what flood? The record of the Incas says what flood? The record of the Greeks says what flood? And the records of Egypt. And this is funny. Somebody had said this to me, send me an inbox. They say, hey, you ever notice that the Bible never mentions anything about the pyramids? But the pyramids were clearly there at the time that the Bible happened. And I just thought, I said, hey, I thought about that. But it's funny. And I got to say this too, Daryl, I know you're ready to chime in. But the Egyptians were very meticulous about record keeping. Meticulous. They have found records of receipts between bankers and farmers in Egypt. They have educational records and grades for undergraduate students, right? They have all of this stuff. All of this stuff is documented. The history of the different dynasties, all of that's is very well recorded. There's no record, though, of any Hebrews being in Egypt, leaving Egypt, or causing plagues on Egypt. In other words, all of that is just a not so delightful fairy tale.
Right.
But anyway, Daryl,
I mean, all of this, it's just, I'm sitting here. How do you then move forward? I mean, what do you do?
Well, I mean, like this.
So so it's all about truth. So if we want, the moniker is truth. We want to know the truth. We want to follow the truth. And I am like so down with that, so big time down with that. But then if we have to find the truth, and the only way I can find the truth is using this and this and then this to talk to others and see what they have to say, that's how we discover the truth. It's about trying to get a better grip on reality. So, I mean, I think in all of this, if I could ever be given a magic wand and wave it over the whole globe and have one wish, if I can impart one truth about reality, which I believe is concrete and observable from multiple angles, and have people truly deeply believe it, it would be the map is not the territory. Derrick, you familiar with that one? I'm sure. I think Aaron talks about it.
Yep.
It's just the notion that each one of us, we do not experience reality directly. All of our experiences, what we perceive, what we see, what we feel, what we think, is all based on the map that's in our head, spun together by our brain, informed by sensory input from the outside world. So not any one single one of us can possibly come to grips and understand reality correctly. We must have each other. We need each other. And we need to have people who do not see the same way that I do, which is the profound danger of groupthink. You're completely shutting down your ability to be in touch with reality. And that is, and I think, so that is so important. I think that's like the foundation. If we're going to have a conversation and if we're going to start moving forward together, maybe one of the ways we have to start is just realizing that not one of us can do it on our own, and we need each other's perspectives, and being able to listen and ferret out what's, and questioning and listening and communication skills all come into play then. But you have to start with, I don't know, tell me what you know. And unfortunately, with religion, that's just shut down. That's not allowed. It was in the thick of it. You don't allowed to question outside the box. You're ejected if you question outside the box. You're demonized.
Yeah.
And that is so that's not reality. You can't, that's unlivable. And
right. So basically, if
let me just say one more thing. I don't want to cut out people who have a faith, because I have faith. I have things that I believe that go beyond the idolatry of some pages. But I just lost my thought. But we just have to be able to agree to come together and talk to each other.
Yeah. Right. We can't be consumed by this hand-me-down reality. We can't be focused just in the area that has been taught to us by others. We have to venture in ourselves and figure out what makes sense to us, what is right for us, and how does that affect other people? How does that affect relationships and communication? I mean, to get to the heart of conflict and the resolution of that into collaboration, we have to first find what's going on that's wrong within us. Not in like the religious sense where we're just all fucked up. But we're all works in progress. Let's not be, egotistical about it. Every one of us is, we have our issues. We got to work them out. But I think the problem when it comes to religion and theocracy and theology, the problem is that there's just no movement. And it's just this diehard idea that I must die on this hill. All the while, my head and my heart are dying because I'm not trusting my own judgment. I'm trusting somebody else's who trusted somebody else before them, who trusted somebody else before them. And it just goes back like who knows how many generations. The deepest family units go back and they're not even bloodline. It's this religion. It's this ideology.
I the way I see it, like I've met some people who are Buddhists, and I think that out of every religious paradigm, I would say the Buddhists are generally the most tolerant of others. That they believe what they believe, but they also have immense respect for and tolerance of other beliefs and faiths. And this is the key. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, either we'll learn to live together as brothers or we'll die together as fools. In other words, we are going to have to elevate beyond the consciousness of our beliefs, beyond the locus of our belief, and transcend that into something that says, okay, even though Ben, Daryl, we don't agree, we don't subscribe to the same faith paradigm, we don't subscribe to the same ideological paradigm, but I understand that we are all in this together. And that whole statement that Dr. King made, I believe, is like a statement of quantum mechanics. You know, that when we become quantumly entangled, in other words, two particles that are quantumly entangled, whatever you do to affect or impact or influence one affects or impacts or influences the other, no matter what the distance is. And I believe that is why that when a loved one leaves the mortal coil, that we still feel something with them, because our energy is quantumly entangled with theirs. And so things that happen to them in the realm beyond whatever we know to be true or what we know to be life, that it impacts them, it impacts us. And I want to share a story with you guys, because this is something, two things happened to me over the last 7 days that were really interesting. One was that I had to be up for a call with my team in the UK at 4:30 a.m. I had a meeting at 4:30 a.m. And so right before I got on that call, about 4:20 a.m. that day, something said to me, "Hey, I wonder how Carl Hoskins is doing." Now, Carl Hoskins is a friend of mine that I have not seen or talked to since the 7th grade. And something just said, "Hey, I wonder how he's doing." And so that day, I looked on Facebook and I found a Carl Hoskins that once lived in Detroit that now lives in Atlanta. And I sent him a message and I said, "Hey, did you go to Custer Elementary School?" And when I sent that message, he immediately replied and said, "Dude, I remember you." And so he was telling me about some things that he was going through, some challenges that he was going through, and I was telling him about some of the challenges that I went through, and we were able to bless each other in conversation. So that's one. That's one. The second one of my Navy buddies, David Thomas, and David is one of the most extraordinary human beings I know. He's a white guy from Portland, Oregon, that had a black stepdad. And I remember when I was on duty the night that David checked into our command. And the first thing that I noticed is that he had a copy of Jet magazine. This is a white guy, red-haired, freckled white guy reading Jet magazine. And so I'm like, and I'm just really puzzled by this. But anyway, long and short of it is that David and I became fast friends. He's like a little brother to me. He looks at me as like a big brother. And every now and then, it was like just out of the blue. I think David and I haven't talked in close to a year, but he texted me and said, "Hey, something just told me to check and see how you're doing." And so when I saw his text, I said, "I'm not going to text him back. I'm going to call him." Right. So immediately I call him and we have a 2-hour conversation night before last. What am I saying with all of this is that there are people and their lives are different. I mean, I can tell you about another guy, Billy Tanner, is a guy that I work with at T-Mobile. Billy and I are about as different as they come. Billy's he's a Southern redneck from Alabama, and he makes no bones about it. He was not a Barack Obama fan, but Billy's no racist. But the thing is that there is an area that we connected on, and that's the thing. What I'm getting at is, guys, we encounter people on a day-to-day basis. We encounter people in our lives, and not everybody is cut from the same cloth as we are. Not everybody is believing the same things that we believe or subscribes to the same notions that we subscribe to, but yet and still we become connected, we become entangled. And the reason, part of the reason that we're able to be connected as we are, is because we've learned to collaborate beyond our differences. And again, I had one friend today that when I was on my rant about the SCOTUS decision, about Roe v. Wade, and this is a friend of mine I grew up with. I've known him for 50. Let me see. Yeah, I've known him for 52 years. 52 years I've known him. And he said, my brother, he said, I'd hate that you would block me over this. He said, but I understand. And this is what I said to him. I said, Tony, I said, you get a hall pass, and you know why.
Yeah.
You know why. And the why is because we have a friendship that has transcended all of our differences, all of our changes from the time we were children to the time we're damn near 60-year-old men. And what I'm saying is that when you learn to resolve conflict within yourself individually, and that you learn to collaborate corporately, then you can learn to resolve conflict corporately. And then you get to a point of at least a peaceful daytime. And that's the whole thing that I'm getting at, is that, people aren't willing to listen. People aren't willing to invest. And let me say one thing before I shut up, because people will say, well, Derrick, you don't listen to anybody. You don't listen to anybody. You shut people down. You're the shutdown corner. And I'm like, yeah, you're goddamn right I am. You know why? Because the things that I shut down, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, are the things that I have already done. If I've already been there, done that, got the t-shirt and ate the corn dog, I don't need to give an audience to what you're saying anymore. So yes, I am the shutdown corner for that which I have already been through. And so when people try to come at me with a Christian perspective, with a biblical perspective, I immediately shut that down, because I'm like, guys, I studied theology for 30 years. I preached it, I taught it, I wrote about it, and now you're going to say somehow that you think that my knowledge, my understanding of this is shallow, and you're trying to get me to return to my own vomit? No, thank you.
Right. And the other thing too, just for you, Derrick, social media is not really real. Not so, social media has good parts of it. Like meeting you guys for me is one of the absolute amazing things about social media. Yeah. But there's a lot of things social media just does not do well. And so let's just all be honest about that too. So I think yelling at each other and not listening, getting on someone's wall, posting on somebody else's comment and starting to get into it, that's just counterproductive. You know what I mean? There's a place for a productive conversation, and Facebook really just doesn't do that very well, I don't think. And I was going to go on a rant, but I want to let, if Ben has anything to say. There's a Harry Rollins has got great stuff on here I wanted to read, but you chime in first if you want to say something, Ben.
Well, thank you, Daryl. Actually, that was perfect timing, the way you worked that in. So I want to go back to what Derrick was saying. He was telling stories about friends that he's found he's able to still connect with, even though they're like completely worlds apart now in their ideology or their view of the world. And they're able to still coexist and be just as thick as thieves now, and it's all good. I feel the same way. This is the thing about me. Like, I've gotten a little bit of pushback from people that are in that world who see some of my posts, some of my musings, and they're like, oh, you just call it exclusive religion, but you're just talking about Christianity. And for me, it's not like I actually do use that specifically because I don't want to throw everybody into that same category. For me, I mean, when I say exclusive religion, it's focused on like the most fundamental most extremist version of any major religion that cuts out anybody else because it doesn't fit into their paradigm, and the people are so soaked in it. But even at that point, I don't attack the people. I attack the structure, because they are just as much victims as the people they're victimizing in the time, because they don't know what they're doing. They think that they're right, but they're just as much in the dark as they think the people are that they're attacking. Beth and I still have a number of friends who are self-professed Jesus followers. And I know, like, you guys have probably heard, you've seen where people say, I'm not a Christian, I'm a Jesus follower. And, that kind of stuff might make you want to throw up in your mouth a little bit. But when you see it, you actually see the people, and that's what they're talking about. They are real Jesus followers, because they're basing the idea of the actions they saw when they read that book. They're not worrying about so much what he said as what he was apparently doing. He was being a social justice warrior in that book. If you read into that, what his actions are speak louder than his words. You can throw the Bible out, and for the most part, I don't use it anymore for anything, but I still have a connection to the idea of Jesus, more the myth, more than the man. Because the message that is put out for what a true, loving, warm, inviting, compassionate person is what I see when I think of Jesus. I don't think of this holy roller, I'm coming on my steed and I'm going to wipe out half the world because you don't believe in my daddy. I mean, forget that. I mean, right. That's ridiculous. He didn't care about theology any more than we do. The three of us here. Part of the greatest thing that comes from my deconstruction, and I'll admit I lost a lot by walking away. I lost a lot, but I've also noticed that there's so many people that didn't write me off when I did this. When I found myself and I realized I don't need this. But I'm not going to say that some people, they get something great out of it, and they're living it the right way. And they're not getting hung up on the stories, and they're not getting hung up on the antiquated ideas. They're looking at the timeless mores, the things that matter the most. And that's loving one another. It says, love God, love one another, right? So by loving one another, we are all being the most divine we can possibly be. That's the key. And I feel like the exclusive religious people are missing that. And I want them to find it. I'm not out here trying to attack them saying, those fucking idiots, when are they ever going to get it? It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart seeing this shit. Every day. More hate. And they wonder why kids are shooting up schools. They wonder why people are shooting up nightclubs or...
Come on, man.
Yeah.
They wonder why we're getting into these wars that are unnecessary over stupid bullshit. Especially the religious ones. Whose God has the bigger dick? I mean really, who gives a fuck?
My God's dick is bigger than yours.
We are here. We're here to love one another. Why do we have to fuck it up with these ideas? Just because you don't understand why somebody loves one person, or why the other sex wants to have just as much rights and power as the other and feel as equals. It's not about usurping one another. It's about finding a ground where we can all live in cosmic ecumenism. Yes, that's my term, and I'm going to run it into the ground because that's my thing. I want to live. I want to see a day. I don't know if Jerome Harris is listening right now, but I know he's on board with this too because he's commented on some of my posts about it. How he hopes that he is still alive to see this, just like I hope to see a day where everybody wakes up, everybody opens their eyes and realizes we don't need a structure that's dividing us. We need free thought that awakens us and gives us all a chance to have our voice, to have our freedom, to have our love for one another, and just enjoy each other. Why do we have to be so pissed off all the time? Fuck this shit. All right.
Oh, Batman, I love you. Just everything you just said. Put it in a bottle, pack it up, put it right here. I'm right there with you, man. I couldn't have said it as good as that. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, dude. So can I go off on a little something I think that ties into this?
Go on, yeah.
And I'm basically it's notes I took from a podcast with Peter Rollins and on the Liturgist podcast, okay? And he was talking about scapegoating and how we humans have this mechanism to, when we're afraid, when there's problems we're facing, we like to break off from each other and blame someone else as a way to try to deal with what's going on inside of me, right? And he came up with this term, and it's a unique little spin on a common word, apocalyptic schism. He had a little schism on the end of apocalypse. Mm-hmm. And the background to this is the fact, I mean, you look at neurology, you look at neuroscience and our brains, right? Our brains have two different parts of us that are sort of at odds. Our brains, we want stability. We want predictability. And if it worked yesterday, I want to believe it's going to work today so I can relax and rest. Take it to an extreme, that's conservatism, right? It's let's go back to the way it was because that worked and I'm afraid about what's going to happen and we're going to fall off the cliff. So let's just dig our heels in and go backwards. Part of that is neurology based. Our brains need that, right? But the other thing our brain needs is novelty. Our brains get bored. Actually, it's really unhealthy for us emotionally, psychologically, neurologically to just have everything the same all the time. We need to grow. We need novelty. We need something new. We need to wrestle this out and figure this out. And so that's by way of definition. So here's what he says. These are just some quotes I pulled. So when we split and separate ourselves to protect ourselves from the problem by blaming others, then novelty cannot arise and movement cannot occur. War is when you want to destroy the other instead of conflict in which you wrestle out your differences. Novelty is a way forward that you could not have imagined in advance. That is so important. You could not have imagined it in advance. This is called apocalypticism, which is different from progressivism or even conservatism. Mm-hmm. So in his idea, this apocalypticism is a incoming of something you never would have imagined. Now, progressives, they want to change, but they believe they know what the future looks like, and they want to control it and make that vision a reality. But apocalypticism is saying, I don't know what the future is going to look like, but I want to step into conflict with you to work out a solution that neither one of us could have imagined beforehand on our own. Right. That lights me up. You know, that's collaboration, that's teamwork, that is harnessing the power of the Gestalt. That's another old word I love. You know, the sum is greater than the total of the parts. You know, we can't foresee the kind of amazing solutions we can come up with if we can all agree, you know, I don't know what the solution is going to look like, but let's conflict this out. Yeah. But in order to do that, I think you have to have people, and this is what he said before, and then Simon Sinek in his Bit of Optimism podcast also interviewed William Ury about conflict. And there is also still a sense in which all parties have to come to the table in the sense of, if we don't figure this shit out, we're all dead. Yes. And Simon Sinek in that podcast told William Ury, he's like, I want to be optimistic, but I'm afraid we're not there yet. You know, and William Ury talked about the Good Friday Accords in Ireland and the immense bloodshed between the Catholics and the Protestants in Northern Ireland, and how you talk about a group of people where you thought there was no way there was going to ever be any kind of resolution. And it was the moms of the dead children on either side and the dead husbands who finally got together and said, fuck this shit.
Right. Yeah.
They started coming together saying, fuck y'all, we're going to grieve together. I'm going to go to my Catholic apartment. We're going to cry together. We're going to grieve. And they started to try to do something to end it. and then it grew out, and then it grew out, and it was like the politicians like the last ones to come on board. But so it's just like that sense of novelty and that humility of saying, the conflict, when we're both willing to listen, can bring about a solution that's even better than any one of us could have imagined. It's a little bit idealistic, but I love it.
The thing that I think about is that we need to get past the comfort and embrace the novelty. And let me say this from a standpoint of my profession, because I work in cloud computing, right? And there are two things that are happening in the cloud computing space. One is something that they call in-memory computing. In-memory computing says that basically databases now live in memory, and the only thing that disk or storage is used for is for chronicling the transactions, right? So everything is in memory. So now there are no read, write, or seek times that would normally be associated with going out in the disk and retrieving data. Everything lives in memory. So now everything happens at light speed, right? That's one transition. The other one is that we're getting away from what's in the physical space, i.e. on the desktop, or i.e. in the data center, and now everything is in the cloud, right? And this is the sweet spot of my business, that with things being in the cloud, now what we're doing is we're going out, and because customers will say, well, I like having a data center where I own the hardware, I own the storage, I own the compute, and I can control what happens there. Well, the thing is that what part of what I do is show customers how going to the cloud, they can still control all of their data streams. They can still control all of their storage. They can still control all of their compute. The only difference is that now it's not on premise. It's not somewhere where you could touch it, feel it, look at it, or whatever. But the gains that you get is you get a resilience that you can't get in your data center. You have multiple nodes of computing. So you have multiple layers of redundancy. You have multiple layers of scalability and elasticity and all of these things. So what I'm saying is that, like these things, I can only prove mathematically. I can only show you that based on what we understand about the technology, this is how I'm able to convey the benefit to you. Because if I say, well, it will look like or act like your previous system, well, if I'm doing that, I'm lying. And the whole thing is that what I'm getting at with this is that we have to get past this comfort zone of saying that I know that this is how things work. Something that really happened, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. It is like something that happened to me recently is I bought an electric car. I bought a Tesla, and the Tesla is amazing on so many different levels. It doesn't do things like a normal car does. I mean, there are some things that it does. You press the accelerator pedal and it accelerates, right? But you don't have to hit the brakes most of the time. You could drive with one pedal. You just take your foot off the gas and you get regenerative braking, which slows your car down. And it restores it. The braking effect returns energy back to the batteries. So that's something how things differ. That if my car is in a parking space, I can hit a smart summon and tell my car to come from my parking space to where I am. Now here's the thing is that this is all like, kind of pie in the sky, but it's not there is no technological, there is no there is no precedent for this kind of thing. this is all brand new. And that's the thing that what I really believe. And I'm a true progressive. Honestly,
Yeah.
I could ditch every tradition that I've ever held on to.
And
I
that
could
brings me back around.
I could shit can every tradition that, like we have Christmas, right? You know, we in my family, we do things different on Christmas. We do things different on Thanksgiving. We don't necessarily have a turkey. We might have crab legs, or we might have lobster, or we do things. Everything is different, and that's the thing, that in order to enjoy the benefits of progress, that we have to say, okay, I'm willing to let go of what I have now for what I'm going to have. And let me give you a physical analogy, and I'll stop here. I'm not as physically fit as I used to be, but I used to work out, and I used to have a truly demanding workout. And one of the things that I used to do is the monkey bars. You jump up and you grab on the monkey bars and you swing from one to the next,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you cannot get to the next monkey bar without letting go of the one you were on.
Yeah.
And to the next one and the next one. That in order for you to move forward, you're going to have to let go of what's behind you. Perfect. And this is the thing that I believe, that if we are going to advance as a species, advance as humanity, as an aggregate, that we're going to have to learn to let go of things. We cannot hold on to the past and expect things to work in the future.
Right.
But what we're doing with Roe v. Wade and all of this is we're going backward. So if we say, okay, Roe v. Wade, we overturn that. So now where else can we go backward? What else is in the rearview mirror that's worth holding on to? And guys, I've said this many times before, and it's not original, but I'm going to say it again. And that's that there is a reason why your windshield is 20 times larger than your rearview mirror. Because what's in your rearview mirror is only relevant to what is gaining on you or what is behind you when you have to change directions. Right. Other than that, the rearview mirror doesn't mean a goddamn thing. Everything, the party in going forward is in the windshield, not in the rearview mirror. So the thing is, we need to stop trying to find what was in the past that worked. Let the past be the past, and let's go forward. Because let's in the words of Captain Kirk, let's boldly go where no man has gone before.
To a new frontier. Right.
That's right.
And this is the thing, and I wanted to address this because what you were saying, Derrick, was perfect. It just kept adding to what I've noticed about what we've been talking about just steadily here. It's a full circle. You were talking about Buddhism earlier. It's probably one of the most tolerable
it's the most tolerant thing,
because they're open to other views and stuff. Because one of the most important things about them, and Daryl brought this up, this idea of always changing. They believe this. The Buddha believed this, that the only thing that really changes or never changes is impermanence. We're always changing. We're always growing. If we stagnate, then we're fucked. I mean, that's just the way it is. This is the thing. We always need to grow. We can't live in the past. What you're saying, Derrick, makes perfect sense. It should make sense to everybody. We shouldn't be following a 2,000-year-old paradigm. We should be looking forward and understanding what is before us. We are making the future. in the present. We're living in the present. We need to focus on what's happening now, what makes the most sense. One of the things that just cracks me up, this whole like new thing where the evangelicals are really upset about deconstruction. They call it sex. They say, oh, these people are just doing this because it's sexy. It's the new fad. It's a passing fad. It's the new trend or some bullshit like that. If there was even any truth to that, who gives a fuck? If it is, okay, at least we're trying something new. We're not still stuck 2,000 years in the dirt doing the same shit over and over again. That's the problem. Traditionalism. It gets you caught. You're stuck. It's a yoke you can't break from unless you really want to.
Yeah,
That's what, for me, it was. It was me having to decide, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. So I'm tired of feeling like this, and I'm ready to try something new.
Hang on, I want to give Daryl a chance to talk, and then we're at the bottom of the hour. So the next thing I want to do is after Daryl says his comments, I want to go to the comments. Let's address the people that are commenting on the show, and then I've also sent the invite in. So if anybody wants to join in and be part of this August body, you can do that by clicking the link.
Yeah, I love I just want to comment on a few things. So I love the fact that the rear view mirror is used only to keep you moving forward safely. It's about moving forward. You want to do it safely. So it's like there are things we can learn from the past that we should be wise in pulling that good universal truths out from the past. But it is not going to look like the past. We've been there, done that. The future looks different. We're going somewhere else, but use the past to move forward safely and wisely. That's one thing. Tied into that is to the evangelical Christians, God is so much bigger than any box. If you really love God, you can let go and move forward and explore and trust yourself. You will find even more beauty and power and passion and mystery and wonder than you ever thought possible. So it's okay to let you're and that's just my personal lesson. That's the lesson and the truth that I've seen of every other person down this journey that I've ever talked to, and I think even of those who are dead and wrote about it. There is so much more beauty to know, and if you love God and if you love Jesus, be like Jesus and say, "You heard it said, but I say to you." That's one of my favorite things Jesus used to do. He had balls. He's like,
I love that.
And he just said it. And so, and the other thing he said was that the wind blows where you don't know where it's coming from or where it's going. So it is with those born of the Spirit. Let's throw a little Bible down in there. Just you go where you go. You. I think those are the couple things I wanted to say. And
if I can just cut back in real quick, because I love what Daryl was saying there. He's even like bringing up their scriptures and showing evidence that Jesus was denouncing this idea that you have to stick to a certain script. Like, look outside this box. God is so much bigger. The divine is all around us. It's within us. It is us. Stop thinking too much about a damn scroll. Back then it was a scroll, like, come on, like, don't get caught up on words. Conceptualization. Focus on what is happening with you. Focus on what is happening around you with other people. Get to know people. Get to know what is going on in their lives, understanding them, because communication and relation are the closest thing to divination that we have. Those are spiritual gifts right there. That's what it's about.
Right. And then just remember that Jesus did all those things, and the only way they could keep people from following him was to make him divine and call him the exception rather than the example.
Yep.
Right. Throw that down right there.
Go on. That's memeable.
All right. There's a lot of great comments in there too as we were rocking and rolling here.
Yeah. So listen, if you see any comments that really stand out to you, feel free to address them. You know, I want to thank people like Brittany Hill for joining
Let me
in.
grab my phone so I can see it.
Oh, Brittany's awesome.
Nicholas Maria. Let's see who else.
Yeah, Keith Gillum. Until religion can accept the possibility of them being wrong in everything they believe in, there will be no conflict resolution with them, and that may be true. Which is why I saw that, Keith, and it emboldened me to say a few things like I just said, because it's safe to go outside. It's safe to go outside the box. God is bigger than the box. He'll meet you there.
Yeah.
It may not look like what you thought, but he's there. She, it, universe, whatever you want to call it.
Yep. Yeah, so Karen Jones says, I'm never bothered by what people believe. I'm pissed when they start telling me and controlling what I believe. And, listen, it's like you believe what you want to believe. If it works for you, that's great. Me personally, I think that some beliefs are just dumb. That's me. But hey, if it works for you, that's great. Like there are some people that believe that drinking their own piss is somehow that has health benefits, right? Well, if it works for you, if it lowers your blood pressure or lowers your blood sugar or whatever, who am I to judge? Honestly. So, I may think, ugh, that's nasty, but if it works for you, that's the deal. I don't want to tell anybody what to think or what to believe. I always tell people my job in life is not to tell you what to think. My job is simply to tell you to think. And if you are thinking, you'll figure it out on your own.
And I want to throw this in, Derrick. What you were just talking about a moment ago. One person's fetish might be another person's sacrament. So just let them do what they're going to do, right?
Yeah. So a little BDSM could be holy in some regards.
Who knows?
Hey, if it works for you, right? So Troy Cashett says, what about all the frozen embryos? Who has to carry them to term? Since they're alive, someone must. And good point. It's like who if these frozen embryos are life, then at some point somebody needs to bring them to term to ultimately manifest and express that life. But one of the things that I think about is when it comes to abortion. I remember there was a couple that worked for a company that I worked for years ago, and they had created a whole website about this child that they had conceived, and this child had some major genetic defects, and they decided to carry the pregnancy to term and to give birth to this child, which only lived for like about an hour and a half. And I have trouble even recounting the story without tears, because the thing is that I understand where they were coming from. They were trying to profess their faith in the midst of a truly dire, dismal situation. But
So I can see it.
I wonder how much pain and suffering could have been averted if they had simply aborted the child, because they knew that this was what was the potential outcome. And it grieved me to read their, and mind you guys, this is when I was eyeball deep in ministry. And I would read these posts and I'm like, I just couldn't. I couldn't, because I know what it is to experience a stillborn child. I know what that feels like. And so looking downrange, I was able to see that this is where they were headed, and they chronicled everything up until the funeral of this baby. And on the one hand, I admire their faith, but on the other hand, I was like, you know, I'm going to say something that sounds kind of harsh. But in football, in American football, there's no shame in punting. Sometimes you just have to fucking punt. And what happens is that because when you get immersed in this religious thinking that you have to do this thing and hold on and go through this thing because this is what they say ostensibly pleases God. Not only would that have possibly saved them a lot of grief, but also a lot of grief for the people who watched. Sometimes punting is the honorable course of action.
Yeah, that's tough. You know, and I think what's beautiful even about that is, just to go back to what I said earlier, it just helps me, it makes sense to me even more than let the woman have that power and right
Exactly.
to exercise her deep wisdom, her deep knowing as a mom, carrying this life inside of her. Give her the freedom and the power and the right
Exactly
to be the one to make that decision, because no one knows better than her, you know? And so, you know, sometimes, and I'm sure you hear people have told stories where they were told that there was going to be birth defects and the baby was born and it was fine. But again, I think you let the mother know. You know, I've had 3 kids. We had one that passed away right before our last. My wife had to have a DNC, which, by the way, overturning Roe v. Wade can really make that more complicated.
Yep.
And my daughter, who's studying to be a midwife, knows these things.
Yep.
But besides that, it's, you know, when Sam was born and he was born premature, my wife knew. She had a deep knowing something was just a little bit off. And I was supposed to go on a trip in Alaska in this little plane and be gone for days. And the weather was a little iffy, but she said, honey, I just want you to stay. I just don't, something's off. And fuck, I was smart enough to listen to my wife. And when I stayed there, it was an emergency situation. I was there, boom, 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 and he's thriving and he's doing great. But all that to say is the mom knows. Don't fuck with that.
Yep. And you have, and here's the thing, that society doesn't know better than a mother when it comes to children. There is no politics, no policy, no procedure that has greater wisdom than that of a mother. And so, Daryl, to your point, you made this point at the beginning and you just reiterated it now, that we have to give mothers the power to make choices concerning the well-being of the unborn children.
And then back them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back them up.
Perfect. Because this is the thing about it. I've heard the quote, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, then do that. If you're forcing birth on a mother, forcing birth on a family, then you better be there to help them out if they're struggling with that birth, with that baby, with that child. It takes
Yeah.
a village. Then
Yeah,
get
and
on board. Don't
like
be
you
just
said,
getting in your lofty perch complaining about, like, oh, wow, you're murdering babies. Well, are you going to help that baby when he's here or she's
okay,
here?
exactly. So pro-life is not just ensuring the baby is born. Pro-life is making sure that all the things pertaining to life are made available to this child.
Right.
Then that means that there is food, that there is medication, that there is health care,
This is
that there is
viability
education. I mean,
in general.
if we're saying that we're going to make sure that every birth happens, then we have to make sure that we do everything possible as a society to make sure that every viable birth results in a productive child. And if we're not prepared to do that, then stifling abortion becomes a red herring.
Yeah, well, the truth is reality of action is the political machine is not pro-life. You know, it's just it really is pro, and that's not. It's not to put anyone down. It's just let's just look at the reality of the actions, of the policies, of everything involved. You got what you wanted, but historically, everyone knows that you just want to control women's bodies. You don't care what happens afterwards.
Yep.
It's a self-righteous sideshow. That's all it is.
That's
dude,
it's just and I don't know how long it's going to take for people to wake up that politicians just care about themselves and they're using these things to just further their own agenda. You know, especially the federal ones. You get big, you get bloated. It's it's just exhausting.
Well, that's the thing. Controversy and publicity are the same thing, you know. There's no bad controversy, there's no bad publicity. Whatever gets you noticed, whatever gets you fame, then that's the team you're going to jump on.
Yeah.
So it looks like nobody's joining in. We're trying to get people to join in, but I want to give you guys, each a minute or two to with some closing thoughts, and we'll go ahead and put on our tall hats and jump on our tall horses and ride off into the sunset, singing happy trails.
Well, I want to start by thanking you, Derrick, for inviting me and Daryl on, especially inviting me and Daryl on together, because this has been so great. I mean, we've just been playing off each other this whole time, playing off of you too, but I mean, like this whole thing, like the three of us, this has been just amazing. And I mean, it just could not be better. So thank you for your vision of synchronicity. I mean, this is happening, and I'm so thankful for it. And I'm thankful for anybody who's been listening or who got excited because they saw that me and Daryl would be part of this too with Derrick. I mean, I'm just so humbled to be here and to be a part of this and to be sharing.
Dude, don't be humble.
Some of my thoughts.
Be humble, because let me tell you something. When discussions like these go down, dude, you belong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think I did all of that. Half the time, just Ben, you write, you say something, all I go is amen. I mean, I don't want to use that cliche word, but it's just like, I agree. Yes. I think right now we're all raw. We're all hurting all of this. And I was even thinking about all of this. The first 45 minutes of this conversation, all four of us were just pissed. And it was just raw. But I think at the end of it all, I really, Ben, what you said, it's love one another. And that isn't a religious thing. I think that is more grounded in reality of what truly makes us alive and open up as a person and brings more healing and hope. And, so I would love more of that. And it's going to be a hard fight because some people are just hurting and they're digging their heels in and they're afraid to change. And I feel sorry for them because change is happening whether you like it or not. And so it's going to be hard for them, but that's okay. We'll be there for them when it finally breaks them, and it'll be okay.
Well,
But yeah, I don't know.
that's another thing. I write a lot about you can't love others unless you love yourself.
Yeah.
But that goes the other way too. You can't really love yourself if you're not loving others. If you're treating other people like crap, that's just a projection of how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
So it all comes back around. It's a circle one way or the other, and you're gonna come to the end of it and realize, but there is no end. Eventually, you're gonna just find out.
Well, I want to thank both of you guys for responding to my call. Aaron and I, we were talking about what we would do while he was gone, and we decided to take last week off. But we said, we want to have one more episode before he comes back, because listen, there's something about momentum, and this is a show, a forum that has momentum. And we don't want to sacrifice that. So we said, okay, who can we get that will help carry the momentum of what we're doing? And so Aaron and I both agreed that you were the guys. I mean, just honestly, that was the thing. We talked about this and agreed on it, and this is the path that we took. And I have to say that honestly, I'm not moved by much of what I read or see on social media, but I'm always 100% of the time moved by what you guys write and post. I'm always moved by what you guys write. And so this, one of the things that I just want to throw this out, not just to you guys, but to our audience is hey, how can, I want to see more of Daryl and Ben, and honestly, I really think that, that you guys, that the two of you have some synergy, that you have some chemistry like Aaron and I have, that basically you guys could be your own freestanding program. And so we want to, everybody,
All right.
if you'd like to see more of Daryl and Ben, hey, just, send me and Aaron an inbox and let us know. Because these guys, let me tell you something. I believe that when you find people that are intelligent, empathetic, and understand how to read a room, that those are three characteristics that help to that are key to producing a success in streaming media or social media, whatever you want to call it. I just think, anyway, I just think that you guys are, I think you guys are both just fucking hot, just,
Derrick, you're making me blush now.
Hey man, I mean, listen, man, you guys are good looking, articulate, you have compassion and empathy and all of these things. And I just, listen, I want to see this really fully expressed. I want to see it manifested. I want to see you guys actually get out and shake the trees and just do it, man. Just do it.
I just finished moving, and so my life has been like absolute madness, but hopefully it level out, and we're looking for what the next other thing is.
Listen, I understand about the whole movie thing.
Yeah, maybe we can do Manic Monday. I don't know.
Hey, you know what? That sounds good. I mean, and then Aaron and I were talking about doing like Tequila Tuesdays or something like that. Where we come up with like, I don't know, like an unsafe word, and every time the unsafe word happens, you have to drink a shot of tequila, and so like if we do the Tequila Tuesday, that could be something we all do together. So we'll drink and talk and have a good time. I don't know. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can spend this, but I just want to thank both of you for taking the time out to join us today. And I'm sure that when Aaron gets back and he gets a chance to look at all of this, he's going to be proud of all of us. He's going to say,
like I said, Derrick. It's an honor. So thank you.
And we had no idea what was going to happen today when we agreed to do this days ago. So it's just it's good. It's good stuff.
See,
I think I can speak for Daryl and myself in saying we will be in talks. And if you want to do like a round table situation, the four of us all together when Aaron's back too, I mean, I'm down.
Yeah, I mean, we need to do that too. Take some of this energy that's in topical things and do it in a roundtable format. And there are a lot of different ways to spin this because I want to reach out to people like Vanessa Brooks and Brittany Smith and say, hey,
Kyle Butler.
What's that?
Oh, get Vanessa on. I watch her stuff, and man, she just trips me up.
Wait, who did you say, Ben?
I love Vanessa. I watch her stuff. Please get her on, man.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get a ladies' night kind of thing going on.
Yeah, too. Yeah, I'm sure Beth would love that.
Where Aaron and I just kind of sit back in the background and watch as the ladies drive the thing, because there's so much wisdom out here that some of our female colleagues have that. It just needs to be expressed. Listen, there are so many voices out here, and one of the things that I feel grateful about is being able to give voice to the voices. To have a platform that I'm able to share the wisdom of others. So that to me is just it's fucking hot. That's all.
You're a social media philanthropist.
There we go. When you're not being mean and blocking people. Why are you so mean, Derrick?
Let me say this, right?
Facebook jail.
Listen, if I really believe in the power of like, right? People talk about love, and I'm really past the whole unconditional love thing. What I'm looking for now are people that I like. If I like you, I'm gonna stick by you. I'm going to promote you. I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that your platform is successful. If I like you, but if I don't like you, then fuck you. Keep it moving. Toodles.
You don't have to have everyone like you. It's okay. It's a big world.
If you don't self-like you shouldn't like anybody who doesn't like you.
Listen, let me tell you something about me. I like me. I really like the fuck out of me. I can be in a room all by myself and I can make myself laugh. I can say something and say, God damn, that's funny. And that's where I am. I'm at peace. It's like,
uh-oh.
They got him again.
Okay, there we go. Thought maybe it was me.
Nope.
All right. Keith Gillum, new fan, absolutely.
I can't really look at the comments, so if anybody's talking to me, I'll check them out later, guys, and thank you for listening. For sure.
Yeah, I know, but Derrick's got the controls. I mean, I guess maybe we just sit here, keep talking until he decides to come back. I don't know if it's still recording or what it's doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's still going.
No, I don't know. So married and 3 kids, married and 2 kids. You guys got little ones. Yeah. I think I'm a little bit beyond where you're at with your kids.
Well, I mean, you have a middle school or high school?
I got 18, 13, and 10.
Wow, that's pretty stretched out.
Yeah, the first we had secondary infertility. We didn't think we'd have a second one after the first. and all three of my kids are like, if you think I talk, my wife talk. I mean, we're all a very, very outspoken family. It's noisy, people talking over each other. It's it's a powerhouse show, and it's hard to contain, but it's all right.
This is the thing about it. I really love Derrick's idea of having like a ladies' night.
Yeah.
Where like I don't know, a round table, I guess, of the ladies talking. Because Beth, I mean, I don't know. I kind of am my own worst enemy. I really don't think I do really good with all this, like speaking. I do better with the written word, in my own opinion. But
yeah, well, you're wrong.
My wife is like, she's all about the camera. I mean, she is so great. She's able to just put herself out there so comfortably, you know. And I mean, it's been a while since she's done any of her card readings, like just kind of like a communal card reading. But like when she does that, it's amazing. Like I'll watch those, and when I've seen her in person, like when we're at like expos and that kind of thing, it's amazing. Just sit there, and I'm just in awe of her.
Yeah.
Like the way that it just comes to her, and she never even says a or a like or anything like that. Like she's so, and I'm doing it right now, but she's so focused and able to just do that. I mean, she proves to me every day that there's a spiritual side of everything, and she is definitely on another level of consciousness than
and I'll let everyone know that.
Well, I am just so blessed that she is my wife, because I'm happy to be a kept man when it comes to like the level.
Well, everyone may think you're just bragging, but I've worked with Beth. She's helped my wife and I with some things, and I will just 100% agree with everything you just said. So you're not just being braggadocious.
No, she's all that in a bag of chips. So.
Yeah.
It's gone now.
Well, I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, I don't know. We're just gonna keep talking until he comes back and shuts it off.
Daryl.
Hi.
Yeah.
I actually am in my my daughter is in the other room, and she just came in. Dad, you done yet? Because we got to go home after this. I had to go. We just moved, so I had to go somewhere else with the camera set up. Yeah. But so kids are great. Not everyone has to have kids, because Victoria saying she's child-free by choice. Absolutely. Sometimes everyone's got to do what they've got to do. Right. So that's the other thing, that the truth is, I would talk about reality. Reality is we each make our own decisions. Reality is I do what I feel is right, no matter what. Even if I have a religion that tells me that I'm rotten, I need to be saved. And when it comes down to brass tacks, I only believe it because I choose to believe it. So that's reality. So if that's reality, let's own reality, and so so be child-free, have kids. I love having kids when they don't pull your hair out, but they just make me a better person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a give and take, because there are those moments where it's like you love them, but then you can't stand them.
Because there are pieces of you that are now right here that now I have to deal with me in you, and I'm like, I get angry
in real time. I mean, it's you're seeing yourself in a little person.
I can't get mad at you because I do that, and you probably also got it from me genetically.
You got this from me. I don't like it. I have to address it by being upset with you, which isn't fair. But at the same time, you have to realize that it's like, well, you can't let them get away with it just because you think, oh, this is just a byproduct of me.
Yeah. Well, it's about growth. It's personal growth too.
And that's everything. And I like how you brought up about reality being in each person, how we all perceive our own reality. So right now, I mean, in a way, and not to get crazy or anything, getting all like warpy stuff, but we might not even be having this conversation. I might be talking to you and you're not really there, or vice versa, right? But
Schroeder,
same time,
is the other person on the camera really alive? I don't know.
I don't know. So, but like I said earlier, though, I'm so glad that he brought us on here together because we've been. I mean, I think this has been like something that should have happened a long time ago, and I think we even talked about it in an early conversation on the phone about how we should probably do something sometime. But isn't it funny how Derrick somehow like had the intuition to make it like force it?
I know. Well, and see, and then going off on another thing, I love, your spiritual humanism. That you talk about that. I know that's a thing that exists outside of you, and you like to you use that term, but that's just, it's about being human. See, I love mystery, man. We need to know what we know, and we need to use science to figure out things. But the other reality is we can embrace mystery. We can use language to explain something that doesn't scientifically make sense to us yet. And that's beautiful and that's wonderful, as long as we don't then start turning our language into a real thing that actually exists. Because in reality, it's my words that I'm using to help make sense of something, to help me navigate it.
Yeah.
But mystery is beautiful and awesome and wonderful. And so let's get more of that.
Like, I honestly thought I came up with that term myself, though. Spiritual humanism.
You did?
Like, I didn't think that it like belonged to like another movement. And I hope one day they don't come along if I like sell my book and everything, and they come along and be like, "Hey, you shouldn't be using that." Like, I never meant to steal it from them. If that's the case, if they're anything that, like me, though, they're not gonna care that I use the term the way I use it. But I think the thing why it was important to me to say spiritual humanism is because I don't want to go secular completely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I'm not a traditional atheist. I wouldn't even say I'm probably even an atheist at all. Like, I think for me, when I say if I say I'm an atheist, I'm against any theology that compartmentalizes a divine force and compartmentalizes a human species that's trying to find it. Like, I don't like this idea that like this is the only way and there's nowhere to go from here. Because if that's the case, it goes back to that traditionalism where you basically get stuck in the quicksand. There's nowhere to go. So basically we just die. So to some degree, being hardcore secular just because there's no evidence is the same idea as sticking to one book in an exclusive religion, because you're not keeping your mind open to the mystery. Maybe there is something greater. At best, I'm like a open-minded agnostic. Like, I'm ready to just find whatever God is the most loving and the most warm, inviting, compassionate, hospitable, loyal. And that's the one I want to get on board with, because that's the one I want to follow. That's the one I want to live my life according to.
Yeah.
I haven't completely found it, but I feel like if I've ever found anything close to it, it's in other human beings. So it all comes back around.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, humanism is basically just finding the higher version of yourself and helping others to find it if they can on their own, without becoming like an edgelord, like saying, "Well, I found it. I found this, and now you got to do my version of this." No, it's not a prescription. I'm describing my view. That's what I do with my musings.
Yeah.
So if anybody ever wants to actually step up and want to challenge me during those, fine. That's fine if you want to. But I'm not trying to convince anybody. And that's my problem. That's my biggest problem with exclusive religion. It's this idea that they believe that humans aren't smart enough to think for themselves. And yet, wait a minute, you're human. So why do you think that what you think is right? Because some other human told you before that, and some other human told them.
It is what it is. And that's, I mean, And that it's okay. That is what it is.
As long as it's somebody else with the ideas, it's fine. But once you start thinking for yourself, oh my God, anathema.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so we got, so Keith, atheist through and through. That's awesome. See, here's the thing. And I think there's also a real powerful thing about when you are you and you just own it, as long as you're open and you're communicating, you're dialoguing, that's what's important. Because see, if you can focus in and be you, even if you're a little bit like focused in, that still benefits me. I can learn from you. And
Right.
because you're giving your energy to be a certain way, you're going to see something I'm going to miss,
Yeah.
So Sandra, awesome, open, human.
I
full
love
of
Sandra. I know what Sandra that is, and she's great.
Yeah. Karen
But,
Jones, Christ Universalist, no box, woohoo. So
But this is the other thing about it, and it goes back to the mindset that thoughts are bad. Thoughts are a crime. Like you can't think for yourself. We can't trust ourselves. We can't trust our head. We can't trust our heart. That's bullshit. And it goes back as far as time, which is the biggest tragedy. This idea that we can't think for ourselves. We have to trust in something else, which is ironically something that human beings came up with. Why would we create that for ourselves? Somewhere down the line at the beginning of this multi-level marketing scheme that went awry, somebody back in time benefited, but it hasn't ever since. This person is dead, and they're not getting anything out of it now.
No residual income.
There's no royalty. I mean, nobody is balancing this at all, and nobody cares. They think they do, and if you really observe some of these people that are like super religious or super political, you see that uneasiness because they know deep down, but they don't want to admit it, that it's been passed down, and they're just following the comfort zone philosophy, the country club philosophy, the tribal philosophy. My way is working for me as long as I believe it's my way. The moment I ever deviate and let anybody else know that I'm deviating, oh God.
Yeah, it is.
So.
Well, this is awesome, dude. But you know what? We're at 2 hours almost.
Yeah, we should.
I don't know
if Derrick's coming back. So
maybe if we just leave, it'll shut itself down.
I'm guessing.
Okay. So this is a fun experiment. So I don't know what he's planning on purpose. Did he sort of like say, okay, well, you guys should do your own podcast, and he just disappears and like, well, I guess let's just start talking.
I don't think he did this on purpose, but it's been good nonetheless.
Oh man. All right, Ben, love you, man. You're a friend, and even though we haven't hugged yet, someday you're gonna get a squeeze from me.
I love you too, man, and we definitely have to get together. We gotta get our clans together for sure.
Yeah, it'll be fun. All right, well, let's just sign off. Thank you, Derrick, for allowing us this opportunity. Aaron, come back refreshed. We'll have more fun.
Bye.
Thank you, Daryl.
Bye.
Have a good night, man. There it is.
Show you something.
Still
now.
recording, so watch out.
I want to show you
You gotta
something.
get out of there. It's gonna continue to record.